The Case of Nicol. Season 1. Written by Cornell L.H. Narrated by Adam Whitty. Episode 1. Nightmare Coming True. 1st of June. Friday. It was a beautiful, bright Friday. Nicol Dallas was on her way home from her office near Knightsbridge in London. She was thinking about how to use her precious free time during the weekend. She was still wearing her work outfit, a dark grey three-piece tailor-made dress with a white shirt. Her hair fell on her shoulders in beautiful, shiny black waves. Her deep brown eyes kept looking towards the light when she was walking upon the escalator to the exit of the tube station. Her lifestyle has always been active. As usual, she took the Piccadilly line train. She got off at Hyde Park Corner. She wished to finish her journey across the park. On hot days like this, a wander across the park always lifted the spirit of Nicol, and today she felt like she could use some delight after a long week at work. For a while now, she's had some unexplainable sadness, a returning feeling at the back of her mind. It was something she failed to pinpoint. She found a way every time to make it go away, and so it had not been any different on this occasion. The short escape from the peak time traffic drove her mind to calmer waters. It reminded her of her home, Sunningdale, a small place near Ascot. Nicol played around a lot in the forest with her friends and parents as a child. When she arrived at the other side of the park near Marble Arch, she turned left and started making her way down Bayswater Road, where she lived. Finally, she could see her front door, so it was time to cross the street. It was the beginning of the weekend. The traffic was still crazy, so Nicol looked around before she stepped off the pavement. As she casually jogged towards her house, a dark-coloured car came out of nowhere, speeding down the road and missing her by only inches. Thanks to her cat-like reflexes, Nicol could jump out of the way. "What an idiot!" she shouted, because her instant emotions carried her away for a moment. She tried to get the number plate, but the car was gone. The excitement passed as she got inside her home. Nicol and her husband Jason had a beautiful house with 2 levels of home and comfort. There was a 3-bedroom, and downstairs was the kitchen, a large living room and a dining area. Each floor had a bathroom as well. That made that property into the home of their dreams. Nicol and Jason liked to travel and discover the world, so they had memories in the decoration. For example, there was a shark jaw from Australia above the TV. Once she was inside, Nicol was not feeling angry anymore with the driver who almost killed her. "I will not let you ruin my day," she thought to herself while taking the steps up to her bedroom. She wanted to get out of her power suit outfit and jump into the shower. She turned on the TV to make some background noise. The news was on. The broadcaster was talking about the rare occurrence that was about to happen. A comet was going to pass by the Earth. Scientists named it Cerrone, after Dr. Donald Cerrone, who discovered it. Suddenly, a key slid into the lock, opening the front door. It was her husband, Jason. "I'm home, babe," he said a bit louder in his deep voice. He had just got back from work too. Jason was a tall, robustly built man with a sharp jawline and short brown hair. He kept his athletic physique after leaving the military. Jason served in the Royal Navy for some years. He had his fair share of war in the Middle East and left the service to become a builder. He wanted to create things, not destroy them anymore. He and Nicol were married for 3 years. Their 4th anniversary was around the corner in September. While getting ready for dinner, Nicol told Jason about the car incident on the street just before she entered the house. Jason asked if she was okay, but they did not discuss it further. "A stupid kid was showing off," Jason said. "Don't worry about it." And he smoothly hugged Nicol and tried to comfort her. She felt safe in the arms of her husband. They were always there for one another, in a truly supportive relationship, Most people who knew them used to call them sometimes the perfect couple. Jason passed out on the sofa after having a long day. After having some food and watching their favourite soaps on TV, Nicol felt like she should go out for a jogging session at about 9:10. She felt restless for some reason. She did not want to go to bed just yet. So Nicol quietly went upstairs to get changed. She slipped into one of her running outfits and wrote a note for Jason to ensure he knew where she was. He knew the route very well. They ran it countless times together. However, that night, when Nicol stepped out of the house, she decided to go on a different path. She started to jog down a side road. She planned to go towards Sussex Gardens, return to Edgware Road, and then go home. She was on a long, narrow road, with cars parked on the sidewalk. As she approached the end of the road, she realised that a black automobile was slowly following her. She tried to look who was driving, but it was getting dark. She could not see who was behind the wheel. Nicol was on the right side of the road. At the corner, she took a right turn. So was the car. It turned right too, and it was only a few metres behind. Nicol managed to get faster and got to the next corner quickly. She took a left turn, and when she looked back, the car was still there, maintaining the same distance. The driver was hunting her, like a predator, and waiting for the right moment to strike. The adrenaline started to pump in her body, and she began to think about what she could do to get away. She was already running fast, thinking, I might have to run for my life. But outrunning a car is impossible. What can I do to get somewhere safe? Then she remembered an alleyway on this street leading to Edgware Road. Nicol ran as fast as she could, turned down the alley, and quickly found herself on the main road. She slowed down now. She knew the car could not follow her through, but she did not stop running. It felt safer for her to be around people. Anyway, she wanted to get to the safety of her home as soon as possible. On her way back, she was very heedful. Every road she crossed, every corner she passed, ensured there was no danger. Once she returned to her door, she was about to enter when she spotted a black car. It was very similar to the one following her not long ago. Nicol's heart was suddenly beating faster, and she froze. Could it be the same one? She asked herself. This car was under the lights. She was able to absorb that nobody was inside of it. It helped to calm her down. Don't be paranoid, girl, she was thinking. It is a city full of crazy people. You don't want to be one of them. She was repeating this little mantra in situations when things got heated with people. But now, she did it to overcome the fear she had. It was the fear that someone could be out there planning to hurt her. That night, while she was trying to fall asleep, she could not get her mind off the question, what if somebody is out there to bring harm to me? Does this person want to kill me? If that is the case, what's the reason behind it? Should I talk about it? Or is it only my imagination? She could not agree with herself, so she had difficulty sleeping. She was making a list in her head, a list of people she could have possibly caused any damage or crossed somehow. It was never the issue. She hardly had any enemies. She always avoided conflict, even if she was right about something. It was not in her nature to hold a grudge. A couple of hours later, she managed to drift off to sleep and catch some rest after all, and she had one of her recurring dreams. In her dream, Nicol was sitting on a park bench. She was watching kids playing on a playground. The weather was perfect. As a light breeze was in the air, she felt like the children's laughter filled her with some positive energy. After a while, she could see a man approaching her from the right. Nicol was not scared of him, and somehow knew she did not have to be. As he slowly proceeded towards her, his face blurred in the distance. She saw that the man was wearing a white suit and shirt. Before she could see this person's face, she woke up. Nicol was trying to force herself back to sleep. It was only 4 a.m, and she still felt tired. She hoped that she would have the same dream again, as it had happened before. Nicol did like this dream of hers. She felt the energy that surrounded her in this dream was unique. She thought it was almost divine. 2nd of June, Saturday. The next day, Nicol was over the events from last night. She hashed her negative thoughts away and never said anything to Jason. She did not want him to worry about something that was not factual. They had a good day at home, focusing on relaxing and everything else but work. In the evening, they were planning to go out with some friends. Around 1 p.m, the calls and messages started. Everybody was looking forward to having a good night, but they still needed to figure out where. It was their turn to come up with a place, and Jason ultimately saved the day. He got the people to agree on an Italian restaurant near Oxford Circus. He always said, everyone loves Italian food, and if they do not yet, they will. In the afternoon, Nicol decided to treat herself with a new dress for the night out. Jason was in the gym doing his usual weekend workout. Nicol sent him a message about where she will be, and she left. She was walking around Carnaby Street when she felt like she was being watched. At first, she hashed it away, thinking it was only a little paranoia after last night. She focused on finding the right piece of clothing for the party, and she did so. It was a black dress, not too provocative, nor too conservative. That's the one, she thought, and she bought it. After leaving the store, Nicol could not but help feel again like somebody was tailing her. She stopped for a second to see if someone seemed suspicious around her. There was no sign of anyone who stood out from the crowd. Once more, she convinced herself not to be paranoid and went home to prepare herself for the evening. That night was as good as planned. They had good food and even better drinks with good company. Once it was over, Jason suggested taking a walk before they got a cab. "I could use a walk," he said. "I think I need some air before we get home." It did not take much to convince Nicol, since she felt the same way. It was around midnight, and the streets were quiet. As they were carrying on walking, she heard steps behind them. She looked back and saw a man about the same size as her husband. He was wearing black from top to bottom. The hood hid his face. She turned to Jason and said, "I think we have a stalker." He turned around to see what she was talking about, then looked at her and asked, "Who?" When Nicol looked back to try and show him, the stalker was gone. Jason had seen on his wife that she was frightened, so he took her towards the main road. "Don't worry, babe. I would never let anyone hurt you," he was saying as he was trying to make Nicol feel better. Jason waved off a black cab to get home. He opened the door and helped Nicol in. He told the address to the driver and he turned his attention to his wife to find out if anything was wrong. "What is going on, babe? Do you think someone wanted to mug us?" he asked in his deep, relaxing voice. "I don't know," she answered while she lay her head on Jason's chest. "I think I was overreacting. You could have been right, you know. It's better to be safe than sorry, as the expression goes. Yeah, it could have been one of those gang members. But we're okay now." She did not want to share her suspicion yet. She did not know if it was tangible or only in her head. She knew that if it was what it seemed, then sooner or later she had to tell her husband about it. He was the only one whom she trusted, without question from day one, since they met at a fitness seminar that evening and he asked for her phone number. That is why she said yes when he asked her to marry him during their holiday in Budapest. Nicol knew Jason's love for her was unconditional. By the time Jason engaged her, he knew Nicol could not have kids and still wanted to be with her. And of course, she felt the same love for her husband. Later, when she went to sleep, Nicol had the same dream again. She was sitting on the park bench, watching the children and enjoying the invisible glory of the positive energy. The man was coming from her right just as always, but this time was different. The man was getting closer and closer until he was right next to Nicol. Nicol set her eyes on this man's face for the first time since she saw this dream. He looked like the perfect human being, only a little taller. His short hair was neatly combed from left to right, and his blue eyes suggested great wisdom. He was radiating some almost holy-like energy, which was very calming. He did not say a word. He just sat beside Nicol. They looked at each other, but she woke up before they could have thought about talking to this man. Nicol took a look at her alarm clock. It was 3:30, only a couple of hours after she fell asleep. Nicol was trying to get to sleep, to chase the same dream. She believed this person wanted to say something to her, but she could not rest. Her thoughts were all over the place, between her dreams and the strange events of the previous night. She was thinking about how she could find out if there was a real threat against her, or if her mind was playing tricks on her. She did not want to raise false alarms and lose her integrity with the people around her. Nicol's imagination was racing, but she fell asleep after a while. That dream did not come to her this time. 7th of June, Thursday. After the weekend, the following days were quiet and normal. Nicol and Jason took on their everyday chores. Family, work, gym, home, business as usual. Nicol was no longer thinking about her dream or the feeling of being followed. However, on Thursday, something happened that changed everything. Nicol was getting home from work later than she usually did. She had to stay in her office and review some of her notes. Nicol was preparing for an important presentation the next day. Being a personal assistant to a top investment banker sometimes requires some overtime. Plus, she had a reputation for being a perfectionist in her work. Her office was on the 10th floor of the building. It was at the end of the corridor, opposite the elevator. The lights were on, and she saw one of the other doors open while locking up her office. As she walked past, she peeked in to see if someone was in there. It was a tiny space with a desk and as many shelves as God could fit, full of files and folders. That was the place where they kept the actual paperwork for running projects. Nobody seemed to be inside. Maybe the cleaner left it open, she was thinking. She made her way to the elevator. It was on her floor already with the doors open. After stepping in, she turned around to press the button to get to the ground floor. When she looked up, someone stepped out of that little office she'd passed a minute ago. It was a person dressed in black clothes. This person was identical to the figure she saw following her and Jason last Saturday. Nicol felt like time stood still as they were looking at each other. It was only a second, but for Nicol, it seemed hours. Suddenly, the stranger started to walk towards her, picking up speed with every step. Her fear manifested before her, and she felt there was no way out. The door to the stairs was between her and the stranger, so she could not make a run for it. She felt trapped and so terrified she could not even scream. Nicol was ready for the worst, but before her living nightmare could reach her, the elevator doors closed. Her heart was pounding in her chest, and fear overwhelmed her. Now she was sure there is somebody out there who wants to hurt her. She was still shocked on her way down the elevator, but her survival instincts surfaced when the lift opened. She sprinted down the hallway to the front desk, where the security guard was on watch. The guard flinched from surprise as Nicol suddenly turned up almost out of nowhere, seemingly distressed. She told the guard what happened while trying to catch her breath. The man gave her a seat in his chair and told her to stay at the desk. "I have to follow protocol, madam," he said. Then he called the police straight away and turned on the security lockdown system. It left only the fire escape doors open on the ground floor. It also turned off the elevators, making nothing but the stairs available. The security man noted, "The only way out is this way, or this guy must be Spider-Man." When the police finally arrived, they asked the security guard what had happened and asked them to show them around the building to search for the attacker. Nicol was waiting downstairs with 2 police officers. The other 2 officers both went to look for the intruder. Meanwhile, she asked if she could call Jason to tell him what happened. When he heard his wife talking about being attacked, he jumped up from the sofa and was out of the house in 5 seconds. He jumped in his Jeep while they were still on the phone. "Are you okay, babe? Are you hurt?" he asked after Nicol finished. "I'm fine. Just come and pick me up, please," Nicol replied. "The police is already here. They went upstairs to arrest the guy." "Okay, so the police are there. That's good. I'm on my way there too. You will be fine. The bastard is lucky to get nicked. You know I would kill for you. I love you more than pancakes." He tried to make a joke to ease up Nicol. It was something he kept saying when he wanted to cheer Nicol up. "Yes, I know. I love you too," Nicol answered and hung up the phone. Long minutes passed, but there was no sign of the search party or anyone else. Suddenly, there was some noise coming from the staircase. The 2 policemen told Nicol to stay put, and they checked out what was happening because they could not reach their colleagues on the radio. After a short while, heavy steps echoing in the distance, coming from the other end of the hallway, got louder and louder. It was only possible to see who it was once the person approaching turned around the corner to arrive at the main door. Nicol began to be scared again. It could be the trespasser, she thought, and she started to look for a way out. "Who is out there?" she shouted, but whoever was around the corner did not answer. Instead, it sounded like the person started to speed up. This time, Nicol decided that she would fight for her life to her last breath, and she was ready to do whatever to survive. Nicol was backing up slowly to the fire exit near the security desk, but then the guard and the 2 police officers appeared in front of her. She calmed her nerves and started to feel a little safer. They did not find anyone inside, so the officers questioned Nicol and the security guard. As she finished describing the intruder to the police, Jason had arrived to pick her up. He parked carelessly in the middle of the road. He jumped out of the car and ran up to his wife to take her in his arms. "Are you okay? Are you hurt? Did someone break into the building?" "I'm fine. I just want to go home," Nicol replied. "Of course, babe." Jason turned to the police officer. "Do you need anything else from my wife? We should like to go now." The officer thanked them for their help and allowed them to leave. In the car, Jason felt something was wrong with the love of his life, and he wanted to do something about it. Therefore, he was the first to break the silence. "Is everything okay with you? You know you can talk to me." "I don't know," Nicol answered while she was staring at the road. "Come on, babe. Please tell me what it is. Whatever is going on, I will help you fix it. You know you can count on me, and I will do." "I think someone is trying to kill me," she said in a strangely calm voice, cutting Jason's sentence. "What do you mean?" he asked. "Like, take your life?" "I know it sounds crazy, but today's person looked the same as the guy I saw Saturday night," she continued. "Same black hood, just like before." "Do you mean the geezer who saw you the other day? The one who was following us?" "Yes, him. And there's something else I didn't tell you. Please don't be mad." And then Nicol told Jason about the black car following her. When she finished, Jason shook his head and looked at Nicol. "I'm not mad at you, babe. I know you just didn't want me to worry," he said with deep understanding in his voice. "But these things cannot be random. I will call Michael tomorrow, and he will help us out." Michael and Jason were friends forever. He was not much shorter than Jason. Michael was a well-trained man for his job, in mind and body. He had no hair on the top of his head whatsoever, so to balance the scale, as he said, he had a beard. His eyes always looked tired. Perhaps the things they have seen in his line of work made them seem that way. He and Jason met at college and served in the Navy together. After leaving the service, Michael became a detective at the Metropolitan Police. Jason trusted him with his life. They were like brothers. Besides that, Jason had an older brother called Ben. Ben was working for the British Embassy in the US. He had a house in a small village named Bagshot, but practically he was living overseas. That night, Jason was trying to make his wife feel safe. He locked up all the doors and windows in the house. Then Jason switched on the alarm. That is activated if the front door or windows are forcefully opened. While Nicol was in the shower, he hid a knife in each room, which he found tactically sensible. One at the landing, one near the front door, one at the back door, and one on the stairs. Jason also took a baseball bat and placed it under their bed. He did not want to use the skills he learned in the army ever again. But this time, the threat was against his love. It was a thing for him that no man could let go. Once she was in her husband's arms in the safety of their home, Nicol felt better. After a shower, she went to the bedroom, and Jason walked in a few seconds later. He walked up to Nicol and hugged her. "You're safe now," he said, and kissed her. That kiss made both of them forget about any hardships of life. They made passionate love that night, to confirm that they were still alive. Later, when they fell asleep in one another's arms, Nicol had the same dream once more. That extraordinary man came and sat beside her on the bench. They were watching the kids playing. Everything was calm. Nicol woke up again before she could have started a conversation. She was stunned because this dream had never occurred this often before. She believed these dreams were signs of something, and Nicol saw them positively. That was because she always felt good after having this particular dream. It was becoming a sanctuary that hid her from the recent stress she was going through. 8th of June, Friday. The next day, Jason called his work and took some time off, as did Nicol. After that, just like he said, Jason called his friend, Michael. He explained what happened, and when he finished, Michael said he would come around with his colleague, a young detective who specialised in similar cases, to speak to Nicol personally and see what they could do. After a couple of hours, the doorbell was ringing. It was Michael with the other detective he mentioned. The other detective looked like a fresh graduate from the police academy. He had short blonde hair, blue eyes, and a shaved adolescent face. Jason led the two gentlemen to the living room, where Nicol awaited. They all took a seat, and Michael took charge of the conversation. "So Nicol," he said, quickly introducing the detective next to him. "This is my colleague, Detective David Price, and we would like to hear what happened." "It all began last week," she started, telling them everything about the black car, the person following them, and the incident at her office. When she finished, Detective Price began to ask for further details. "Did you see the number plate of that car?" "No, I couldn't manage to have a good look," she answered. "I only remember the first letter, P, and there was a number 3 somewhere in the middle." "That's not much to go on," Michael noted, "but we have done more with less before," he added, and then he had a follow-up question. "I can't believe I'm asking you this, but do you know anyone who would want to hurt you? I can't think of anybody that would do that," Nicol said while she was fighting with her tears. "I've never done anything to deserve this." Jason gently placed his hand on her back and took over. "We don't have enemies," he was explaining. "We always make sure that we don't hurt the feelings of anyone, whatever the case is. Ask any of our neighbours or anyone we ever knew." "I know that you are good people," Michael began to say, "but it could be something insignificant for you. A promotion she got instead of someone else, or another of her success could trigger such behaviour. Also, it could be a man who got rejected by her. Long story short, there could be a bunch of reasons for this. Please try to think." "I've told you before," Nicol replied, a little angry. "I've never stepped over anyone, picked a bone with any of my co-workers, or killed a fly. You know me." I know," Michael reacted emphatically. "But the motive for criminals like this is rarely that simple. This kind of person sees the world through a different set of eyes and processes emotions differently. Things that you wouldn't worry about could mean everything to them. For sure, he didn't choose you for no reason." "There is one more angle, madam," Detective Price said, picking up on the momentary silence. "It could be someone from Mr. Dallas's life trying to get back on him by targeting you." "But my wife is innocent," Jason reacted. "Whatever I have done, it's my fault. Why would she be the target?" "Because this person knows she is important to you," Price answered. "But if you are the real goal of the suspect, then the killing of your wife is just psychological torture. However, we don't know enough yet to draw any conclusion. I need an employment and education history from you and your wife. That includes your current occupation. That would help to get a list of suspects, which we can start to narrow down later. For now, I suggest you stay home for a few days. Don't go anywhere alone, Mrs. Dallas, and always keep the doors locked. Use your alarms if you have any. Please get in touch with me if anything happens, or you remember something that could help." Then he gently placed his business card on the table. "I will also need you to be available if I have any questions." "Yes, of course," Nicol said quietly, while Jason nodded his head as a sign of agreement. When Detective Price and Michael were leaving, Michael stayed longer. Michael stayed back for a second to have a word with Jason. "Don't worry, mate, this guy knows what he's doing," he said while looking at Price. "Even I will be on his list." "You should be on the top of it," Jason replied with a discreet smile to ease up. "Just make sure you catch this bastard, and nothing else happens to Nicol. I don't care about the rest." "That is the plan, brother," Michael said, and he got into the car. The two detectives returned to their office when they finished with Nicol and Jason. On arrival, they reported the case to their superior, Superintendent Sarbjeet Singh. He was a tall Sikh man, and so true to his religion. He wore a turban and he had a long beard. He had a confident personality, and only his presence without the uniform suggested authority. After hearing the report, he decided to assign Price to the case. Since Michael was the Dallas family's friend, he could not participate in the investigation. He got ordered to investigate a lethal knife attack near Oxford Circus. Price began to work the case the minute he left the superintendent's office. By the time he sat at his desk, he had Jason's background details, and Nicol was in his email inbox, including a list of friends. It was a very long list. He also checked how many cars are out there with the letter P and the number 3 in it together. It was another mile-long list, and Price had no clue how to narrow them down. He decided to take a look around at Nicol's office. When the detective arrived, it was after business hours, at 5:30. The same guard was on shift, so his memories were still fresh. Price interviewed him right away. The guard's statement wasn't much to go with. He never saw the intruder, but he said cameras were only working that night in the building lobby. This made the young detective assume that the attacker had experience if he had been the one who disabled the cameras. After talking to the security guard, Price went to the floor where Nicol's office was. He walked into the small room where the attacker stepped out. Behind the shelves there was a window. The young detective realised it was closed but not locked. Price opened it and looked out. When he looked down, he saw a climbing rope fixed on a quick draw outside the window. It was hanging down to an alley on the side of the building. Price took out a voice recorder from the inner pocket of his suit jacket. That is how he created notes. Saying out loud his theories and listening to them helped him to remember all the details. He never recorded the victims because he respected their privacy. All thought he did record witness statements if they agreed, and it was carrying value. Price turned on the recorder and began his verbal notes. The suspect used climbing tools to escape the building. Judging by the quick draw and the rope left by the suspect outside the window, he's an experienced climber or has a possible military background. When he finished with his notes, he called in a forensic unit to help him recover the evidence that he came across. He waited in the room for them to arrive. While the evidence was getting bagged up, Detective Price went down to the alley to look at the suspect's possible escape route. Both ways of the walkway led to the main roads. No cameras were applied there, so it led nowhere from an investigative point of view. Price returned to the station to review his notes and file his report. Around the same time, Nicol and Jason were getting ready for dinner. Today it was Jason's specialty, tuna and sweet corn pasta. The simple dish was his all-time favourite since his childhood. After dinner, they decided to have dessert while binge-watching their TV shows. In her husband's arms, Nicol felt safe again. She had hoped that the young detective would catch her stalker before things would escalate. Jason shared this hope with her, but he kept remembering all those stories in the news about how the stalker had gone too far. He was naturally worried, yet he did his best not to show it to his wife. As the man of the house, Jason wanted to keep looking strong in front of Nicol and ensure she felt protected. And so he was ready to give his life for his love at any given moment. When they went to bed, it was almost 11 p.m, and they were asleep by 12:30. Nicol's dream returned once more. She was sitting on the bench, looking at the playground. However, the mysterious man was sitting next to her from the get-go this time. She tried to look at the man to see if she recognised him. He did not seem familiar to Nicol, so she asked him to introduce himself, but before she could, the man leaned forward and whispered to her, "I know what you're missing." It caught Nicol by surprise. She looked back at the playground, and the kids were gone. She wanted to ask the man what was happening, but he disappeared. She was sitting there alone now, and the positive energy she felt before turned into an overwhelming sadness. Tears started to roll down her face, and she wanted to call out for help. Besides her best effort, she could not make a noise, which scared her. Dismay took its toll on her as she looked around for anyone to help. The sadness and fear kept growing and growing to the point where she felt like she was losing her sanity when she woke up. It was in the middle of the night again. She went to the bathroom to wash her face and cool down. She was still shaking from her dream, and this time she was happy to wake up from that nightmare. This dream always gave her comfort, but now Nicol had a good look at herself in the mirror. "What's going on, girl?" she asked her reflection. A few minutes later, she went back to bed. She was thinking about what that dream could mean before falling asleep again. To be continued.
3, 2, 1. Hello there. My name is CLHTheAuthor, the author of this little audio drama. First of all, thank you very much for tuning in and staying until the end. I hope you're looking forward to the next episode that's coming on the 29th of August this month. That's next Thursday. It's coming a couple of days, so not too much waiting, and then every week a couple of videos for you at least. So once more, thank you very much for tuning in. If you like the story, please like, subscribe, hit the notifications, all that jazz, and share with your friends who loves a good old mystery. Peace out.